I would say if you're going to do a comp of the three promotions we're going to be talking about, I would say these matches would probably make any comp. So what we're starting with tonight is from 2005. We're going to be doing Samoa Joe and Necro Butcher. From 2011, we're going to be doing Mike Quackenbush versus Eddie Kingston, and then from 2013, we're going to be doing William Regal versus Cassius Ohno from NXT.
So these are, what's the best way I can put it? They are notable matches that are usually talked about, but they don't. Most of the lists I see people make, they don't go on like their top 10 lists, but they're still very notable.
I would say if you did like a top 100 list of the 2000s, that Joe and Necro Butcher would be lurking in the bottom half of a lot of lists.
That would make sense.
Maybe
yeah.
the bottom fourth. Like it was it was big at the time. I would say
it has a reputation.
And I would say it helped really cement like Necro Butcher is like a top end talent and started getting him gigs other places.
I had heard of this match. I had actually never seen it, but it did get a lot of hype back in the day. If you were on the internet in the kind of the wrestling message boards, then you would have probably heard of this match or heard people raving about it.
Yeah, because it kind of came on the edge of, and I vaguely remember it like was it a Chikara match where people got upset because it looked like Necro Butcher and someone else were being a little rough with a couple of youngsters.
I don't remember that one at all.
I don't remember.
I saw a shoot on this like recently. That's kind of like I vaguely remember that, but it was, I don't know, the wrestling message boards were different back then. Like your ability to see everything is not what it is now.
Yeah.
Like you had to really hope someone was going to upload it. I remember seeing this at the time, but I had not seen it in a long time. And going in, I was a little worried I was going to be horrified at some of the stuff they did, which I was, but not to the degree I thought I was going to be. Like it wasn't Necro Butcher and Loki, which really had a lot of dangerous spots, and this really only had about 3-ish bad ones, I would say.
Well, we'll dig into it. It's got some.
The exploder off the apron was like the worst one, obviously.
Oh gosh.
But like, there were a couple spots I thought were gonna end up bad, and Joe protected him pretty good on a couple of things that looked like they were potentially going to be bad. So, like the powerbomb onto the chair, Joe kind of angled him good on that, and then the powerbomb onto the guardrail, Joe and him like wrangled some things with that. Didn't look as bad as it could have been.
And there was a German suplex on the chair.
Oh, that's right. It was a German.
Yeah. Okay. So this match is the notable spots Brad's talking about. He talked about the exploder from the apron to the floor, and when we say the floor,
yeah,
we mean the bare concrete.
And yeah. There was absolutely no pads out, and I mean. I don't really remember a lot of this era of Ring of Honor.
This is IWA Mid-South.
Oh, sorry, it was IWA Mid-South. My apologies. That makes sense because I was like, this looks very like ECW-ish. That makes sense if it was like an Ian Rotten production.
Hold on.
Ian and yeah.
They were talking about this as their debut in Philadelphia, so this might have been the ECW arena. Let me look because I had it on my phone earlier.
You sent us the card earlier, and I believe that Ian and Axel were actually tagging somewhere else on the card. Ian and Axel Rotten.
Yes, I think so.
This match starts, and the guys are just they just like rip into each other immediately. They just start wailing on each other from the start. Which, if you're going to have a hot match, that's one of my favorite ways to see it start, because it's not any of this like we're sizing each other. It's just like ding, and they just just tear into each other. And it seems like about 3 minutes in, Necro Butcher's like, well, might as well blade now, and just there it goes.
Oh no, he didn't blade. He had cut himself. He had cut. I only know this because I listened to a shoot interview. He had cut. He had bladed. Okay. He had bladed, and they mentioned it. They mentioned it on commentary that he had just gotten in on a flight the night before. Well, he'd been working Big Japan, so he bladed pretty good there, like a night or two before. So he said he called a couple spots because he figured if he landed good, it would pop open. So that's where he didn't actually blade. He just he just worked it so Joe would open the cut for him.
Well.
Yeah. For those, sorry to cut you off, Shad. For those who are not aware, or have never seen any of it, Big Japan is it's largely like a deathmatch promotion in Japan. I felt like there was in kind of like around the time of ECW, and certainly in the wake of ECW closing, there were all of these different promotions that emerged that kind of fit into that deathmatch niche.
Well, I think Big Japan goes into the mid-90s, but Japan had like Frontier Martial Arts, which is FMW. They had Wing, and then they had Big Japan, and then there was it the IWA over there?
Was FMW? Did it start? Was it started by Onita, or was it just?
Yeah, that was Onita's thing.
And then Onita, I think, left and did Wings, right? Wasn't he behind Wings?
I'm not sure. I only remember Wing, I think, because the Headhunters were from Wing. Pretty sure. But like FMW, I wouldn't necessarily classify as a deathmatch promotion because they were kind of like your typical 3-ring circus where they had a bit of everything.
That's true. I remember they did have some deathmatch stuff that was kind of prominently featured, but they did have other stuff, and I think their biggest star was Hayabusa, who was not deathmatch at all.
Yeah.
And we could do an entire show probably on him just because he was a really fascinating worker and character who should have arguably been bigger than he was. But
he busted his neck.
He literally broke his neck and was never able to recover, and then actually passed away not that long ago. I think last like 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. I just know with him, I've seen matches of his, but I've seen him fall on his head a lot, and it's hard to watch now.
Yeah. The two biggest spots that are in this, we mentioned the exploder to the floor. Early on, there's a power slam on the floor.
That was early.
Yeah, and that was like 2 minutes in or something.
That made me cringe. Honestly, this entire match, it's weird because, I mean, back in the day, I think my opinion has really changed. Like, if I had watched this contemporaneously back in the day in like the mid-2000s, I would have been like, oh my god, this match is awesome. Like, I would have been like a lot of people did at the time, like really ranking it high. Because I think at the time you weren't really seeing this type of thing.
It was very spectacle.
Yeah, and it was brutal. Like, this was a brutal match. It looked like honestly looked like Joe was trying to murder him. It looked like Joe was literally trying to injure him, like for real. It had a really really tight worked shoot type of thing.
Yeah, according to Necro Butcher, like obviously Joe had input, but Necro Butcher called this.
Well, the two spots I was going to mention, because I knew they were coming, and I wanted to get a look at them because I'm like, okay, what happened here? Did Joe dump him on his head? You know, were they going up and the spot got kind of bobbled on them? That's not what it looks like. Both of those spots look like Necro, first of all, wasn't going over appropriately for it, and then second, he didn't tuck his head. So it like on that power slam, if he had like gotten a look,
I thought it was botched.
I didn't think. At first I thought it was botched, but then I thought maybe Joe did it that way so that he would like to protect his head, so that he would bounce off of Joe and kind of like, but it still looked like he slammed his head on the ground.
It did not look that way to me.
No,
like if they did it safely, then all kudos to them. Like, that's Joe really being like I know he's a great worker. That's him being a really really good subtle worker where he's protecting like his opponent, because it looked like a botched move to me. And it literally looked, so if people, for those who have not seen it, to the audience out there, this is how it was. Like, you know how with a power slam, like you see, like, say, Dustin Rhodes do it?
Yeah.
You know, it's that quick snap where it's like he pulls the guy over and the guy is, like, tucked in. So the guy lands on, like, his back or his upper shoulders. But it's a really, like, tight, quick move. But the guy is protected because, you know, Dustin or whoever's doing the move is controlling the momentum, and he's safely tucking the guy's head inside. That wasn't it. It literally looked like Joe took him, got him in the power slam spot, but instead of like rolling him over so the guy would land on his back or the upper body, it just looked like he drove Necro's face and forehead right into the ground. And it looked botched to me. It looked scary as hell. I don't know if this was the spot or was it just before where Necro got busted open, but he was just bleeding.
He got busted. He got busted when Joe was punching him in the face. I think Necro had him.
Had him go at the spot.
Before they even got out of the ring, I think. There was a point where Joe was like giving him some punches to the face. You could see the side of his face like turn color. So I think he had Joe bust his cut hard way. And then like he wasn't getting the blood he wanted, so then he did the exploder off the apron to get it really, really going.
It was just the power slam spot really made me cringe. It just, I was like, I thought, oh my god, he busted his head crack open.
This is one of those. Finish your thought, Matt. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say, like, Ed, I don't know if this was actually the case or if it's just like Necro's forehead is kind of oddly shaped, which I actually think it's the case. But toward the end of the match, I almost thought like his forehead was like swelling, which I guess it could have been because he was bleeding, but his head looked like misshapen to me, and I'm like, oh my god!
If you watch
did the power slam
interviews,
spot actually like hit him in the face? Like he like just cracked his dome right on the cement.
Yeah.
If you watch like old if you watch shoot interviews with him, he's got a weird head going on.
So Matt, to go to what you were saying, when you see like Joe or Dustin or whatever do the power slam, okay, I'm gonna pull back the curtain a little bit on this. Because, you know, I'm not in the business anymore, who cares? But part of a power slam is the guy taking it is cutting a front bump. And the guy who's taking you over, part of his responsibility is, I'm taking you over, I'm pulling your head to make sure you don't land on it. Like I'm helping you complete the rotation. So guys who have really good power slams are able to take someone who's going in for a front bump like that and accelerate it and like snap it off. Or they're strong enough that they can take it, and when they take you over, they're just able to control you the whole way, right? Because, like, Goldberg's big power slam he did in that match with Hugh Morris, like, that's not a fast one, but he was strong enough that he just took Morris over for it.
Can I ask you a question? Just because it's a curiosity I have. Now, would doing it to someone on a ring with a little spring to it be different than trying to do it on cement that has no give to it?
I mean, your landing's going to be rougher.
I mean, like, does that affect, like, does it give you a little enough of a decrease in lift on both of your parts that it could?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, because I would imagine a spring I imagine a ring helps you propel yourself a little bit, even if it's only minor. But like it gives you a little help because it has give.
Let me put it this way: the rings I worked in were not springy. They had a little bit of padding on them, but they weren't springy. So for doing that bump, and I never did a power slam on the outside bump. But for doing that, you know, my front bump would be the same. You know, I'd just up and go, but it doesn't look like Necro like rotated at all, and that's why I'm looking at it and I'm like, not to cast too much blame, but that looks more like a Necro thing than a Joe thing as a botch on the exploder too. Because like I said, he wasn't rotating over and he wasn't tucking his head. He just kind of landed face first on both of them. And I don't know if Necro's of the opinion is like, my face is already like this. Who cares if I land on it? But yeah, it's just hard to watch.
I think, like I said, I think according to his shoot, he was using those to try and get that blood.
Good God, man! Run to the ring post or something instead. Don't face dive onto the concrete.
I mean, should we talk about the fact that Necro Butcher went to college at like the age of 14 because he's like a legitimate genius?
And we're not even exaggerating. I think he's like a part of Mensa. I think he has even been tested. He has a legit genius level IQ. He's just crazy as hell for some of the stuff he's done.
Yeah, for a guy that was never in the big leagues, like if you hear him talk about it, he's really like, he pretty much talks about like, man, he's like, I traveled the world on like someone else's dime and I got to do all of this stuff because of wrestling. Like, I don't have a single regret.
I'm happy for him. He figured out what worked, made his niche, and became a notable name. There's no way in hell I would have done it that way, but I'm happy for him.
And he was like, in that same one, he's talking about like, I hate these guys that come in with all these DVDs and they're trying to sell people all this stuff. And he's like, he's like, if you see me after a show, like, he's like, just bring me whatever, like, I will sign whatever the fuck you want me to sign, and I won't charge you a dime for it. Like, you can bring me beer and stuff, but like. I'm not going in for that. Like, people want to pay their money and come and like, I'll entertain you.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, it's fine. It's fine, Matt. Go on.
I didn't hear the entire segment, but I know Jim Cornette was talking about him or was asked about him on his podcast. And I don't typically listen to Jim Cornette, but I did hear this clip about him. Unfortunately, not on the entire way through, but someone did ask him about Necro, and he was actually fairly complimentary about him. And I think wasn't he kind of saying like, have you guys heard this?
Yeah, I've heard it.
No, I haven't.
Oh, you've heard it, Brad?
Yeah, he pretty much just says like, the guy has like a unique outtake on wrestling, and he's like legitimately a genius, and doesn't really have anything bad to say about him.
Yeah, and I think he was kind of saying that I think Necro actually did quite well for himself for like the time period that he did. I don't know if his time had been coming around now, like he would have probably been unique enough that he would have done well, but I don't know if he would have been as big. Yeah. But Jim was kind of saying like I think he was kind of almost saying too that he may have been bigger in a different era. But he's different because I mean, Necro had like some size to him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But he also, in a way, wasn't as like big as he could have been. I mean, he's reasonably tall for wrestling. He's like 6'2".
He's billed at 6'2".
Yeah.
So that's reliably 6 foot or 5'11".
But I feel like I've seen him wrestle for like Ring of Honor, and he didn't strike me as like a small dude. Like that might actually be like a legit 6'2".
I'm just saying that usually build heights are 2 or 3 inches taller.
Mm-hmm. But his physique was not like, he wasn't a huge dude like a Bruiser Brody type, where Bruiser Brody was clearly like muscular.
Yeah, but I think Necro's physique worked for him because I think a guy like him and like what his gimmick was, you don't want him to be like built, and you don't want him to be fat. Like, you want him to be a little sloppy, which he was.
Mm-hmm.
He's got size to him, but he's probably got some love handles in there.
Yeah. Well, that's what Jim was saying. Jim was saying that he also didn't have like a certain physique that actually would have gotten him over. Like, he brought up like Killer Tim Brooks, and I haven't seen enough Killer Tim Brooks, but I've seen some of Tim Brooks's like Japan stuff, and the guy was unique because he had a similar look to Necro in that they both look like just greasy hillbilly types, but Tim Brooks had this like a pot belly to him, and you think like that wouldn't necessarily like work, but it did because it was kind of that era of wrestling, like in the 70s and the early 80s, where that actually worked. Like you could be like a guy who looked kind of gross and fat like that, because you also had this like aura or mystique about you that you actually probably were like a legit ass kicker. Yeah. And I did think Necro did have that, because he did crazy shit, but he also did seem like the sort where it's like, this dude, if you got in a bar fight with this dude, like, you don't know what the fuck's gonna happen. Yeah. Like, this dude could maybe like legit like tune you up
This dude's gonna hit you with anything he can lay hands on.
Oh, this dude's gonna headbutt you until he's like bleeding from the forehead, and you don't know.
And you might end like in a bar fight. Necro Butcher's the kind of guy that he may end up, instead of hitting you with the bottle, he might hit you with the ashtray and then try to stub out a cigarette in your eye. Kind of crazy.
Yeah. And I really think, like, in the 80s, he would have had Puerto Rico as an option, but I think even if he had come along about 10 years later, I think his options in Japan would have been much better because of the different landscape. Like, I think companies like DDT might have been willing to give him work based on his look and stuff.
Yeah.
It struck me that if you had Necro around in the territory days, he would probably fill a similar slot to like Abdullah. And you bring in this guy who has this mystique, and he's not a big monster like Abdullah, but he's the psychopath that comes in and goes after somebody, and it's just like, oh crap, Necro's here, what's going to happen? In that era, I think he could have filled that role and had plenty of success too.
I don't think you really have someone in the current day who fills that same like niche that he did, except for maybe like Nick Gage.
Nick Gage is
probably.
Nick Gage is like a different animal to me, I think.
Yeah, that's true. And Nick Gage has been around probably. He probably started around like the same time as Necro.
Wasn't he like one of the OG like CZW guys?
He was one of the original CZW guys, and I feel like was heavier, like weight wise. He actually seems like he's slimmed down and gotten in shape.
Well, Prison.
He's a weird one because that's true.
Yeah.
It's weird because he was actually because in the early 2000s it was like the tape trading and everything, and I actually saw like quite a few of those early CZW shows, which weren't good, but it was like it was him and his shoot brother Justin Payne they were like the big stars of CZW.
Mm-hmm. I hated that. There were way too many Justins back in the day, because there was Justin Sane, Justin Credible, and then like Justin Payne. Like way too many guys were aping that gimmick back in the day.
Then they would do things that didn't even make any sense. You have Justin Credible, Justin Payne, Justin Sane, Justin Blood, and it's like, wait, you get the joke, right? Justin Blood.
No, they obviously didn't.
Yeah. So I mean, you mentioned Joe takes care of Necro in some places. The one that stood out to me was that German suplex, because Joe kind of eyeballs it, and when he goes to throw Necro, he don't throw him directly on it.
He kind of got him like he kind of did it so Necro's shoulder would take the chair out.
Yeah, Necro's shoulder hit the back of the chair on the way down, which knocked it over, but he didn't actually land on it, which, I mean, that's some quality way of taking care of somebody, because it still looks just rough, but I had to watch it back to make sure I saw it right. I mean, that's good on some. And the thing that, like, other than the power slam and the exploder, that made me uncomfortable about this is how much blood is smeared all over both guys at the end.
Well, Joe smeared it on himself at the beginning.
Well, I mean, just how much they both end up with on him. I'm kind of like, because the work I do takes me into the corrections facility sometimes, and I had to have hepatitis vaccines, and I look at that and I'm like, that makes me really uncomfortable.
Do you just to go a bit into Necro Butcher's history, he is also one of my favorite Shikara characters of all time.
Oh yeah?
Do either of you want to take a guess at who he was?
Wasn't he was he CP Monk?
Yes, he was CP Monk, the straight edge chipmunk. And CM Punk got so butthurt about that too.
Of course he did.
It's almost a jinx, but I mean.
But of course he did. But then like Colt comes in and works like angles with Colt Cabana years later, because he actually has a sense of humor.
Yeah. Colt seems like one of those guys that would be a good guy to get to know and work with in wrestling, and Punk seems like the guy.
There's so I know people don't there's more I know more than one person involved in wrestling that does not have a good opinion of Colt. But Colt also seems to be open to things because if you stay open-minded, there can be money involved instead of like being a douche. But I've heard more than one person not have a good opinion of Colt.
I've heard from a couple of people who have interacted with him that have not had a good experience.
Yeah.
I think he can take the attitude where if it's not gonna make him money or benefit him in some way, he can be a little he can brush you off or be abrasive.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Which, I mean, I get it's a business, but it's also you can't, you don't really engender people being on your side or being fans of you if you're gonna be kind of shitty behind the scenes like that.
That's fair.
I will say, I've heard that, but then I have ordered stuff from him in the past, and he'll just sign random things and stuff them in the order for you. So, I mean, it's wrestling. Everyone's
it can be
kind of
hard to read. Yeah. That's true.
Though I've from fans, I've only really heard and people behind the scenes, people like the Bucks, I've only really heard good things about. So.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I've heard that I've heard many stories about them. If they're at a signing or something like that, they'll hang around and sign whatever people want.
And I know someone who said their handlers wanted to charge their daughter, and they told their handler they're not charging an 8-year-old, and took pictures and signed stuff for them.
Yeah.
So
that's very fair.
Yeah, I've heard the Bucks are really good to get along with. So. More power to them. Honestly, wrestling needs more people like that to kind of change the image from the money-grubbing, carny jackwagon to something a little better with fans and that sort of stuff.
And I just want to call them out because I've seen their behavior over the years, and Adam Pearce and Ethan Page seem like good stand-up dudes. Because they've called out bad behavior. I don't remember. Ethan Page called out that douche that attacked those kids. That Adam Pearce was all over. Was he all over Bill DeMott, or who was he? He went after someone hard, over one of those scandals.
You know what? I'm going to Google that real quick. Adam Pearce.
Are you talking about Scrap Daddy Adam Pearce?
Yeah. About to job Roman Reigns, Adam Pearce.
Yeah,
he's no longer in the match.
Oh, he's not?
No, I actually would be no joke, legit interested in a Roman Reigns Adam Pearce match, but no, something happened where basically he gave up his spot to Kevin Owens.
Oh, you know what's weird is
which is no offense, I'm sure that'll be a good match, but it's also we've been seeing Kevin Owens versus Roman Reigns, I think 2 or 3 times now, in the last 2 months. I think they've wrestled a couple times at a pay-per-view, so
yeah.
I don't really need to see that.
He's the first authority figure in years they've actually treated with a modicum of respect and credibility.
And you know why? You know what they're doing? I'm sorry to cut you off, Shad. What they're doing well that I like there is that they're not just playing the whole a biased official, the biased management person. He actually does try to be impartial.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason that he is kind of against Roman Reigns in any sense, in the storyline, is because Roman Reigns, Roman and his little family of people just keep fucking with him. So it's Roman has pressed the issue.
Mm-hmm.
You mean
what were you gonna say,
character motivation? Oh my god, that's such a novel concept.
It's really weird. People have brought this up before, so I'm not making any sort of brilliant observation, but people have brought up really are the same people writing SmackDown and Raw, which it's they can't be I'm sure there's a writing team, but it has to be someone who's really Because there is like a stark difference between the two.
It can't. Bruce
Mhm.
cannot have anything to do with SmackDown because as soon as they named him head writer of Raw, SmackDown got markedly better, like instantaneously.
I am generally not that hot on anything in the WWE right now, and I mean that's across all three brands. But
Yeah.
to the extent that there is like some decent stuff or stuff that is interesting at least going on in the WWE, it's largely like SmackDown.
I would honestly say, and I'd probably get burned at the stake for this online. If you asked me to choose between SmackDown and NXT, I'd probably pick SmackDown.
I would agree actually. I think NXT has a lot of issues.
Yeah.
I couldn't find anything about Pierce calling anybody out, and I'm not big on WWE stuff right now either. I'm honestly so burned out and tired and aggravated with the fact that so many things that they could so many things they do could just be so much better with just a little bit of thought or freedom to, or just a little bit of something that they can't let happen. That I've just about written them off entirely.
There's too much.
But I've seen. Hey, I'm sorry, Brad. Let me finish real quick. I've seen some clips of Adam Pearce doing stuff. Like there was the clip he gave Miz the Money in the Bank briefcase back because he's like, the only person who can cash it in is the person that's holding it. Someone else can't do it for him, so you get this back. Like he's being a reasonable authority figure, and then someone messes with him, so he goes back at him. For God's sakes, how is this hard? I don't understand how this is difficult. You know, I don't, if you have any kind of grasp on storytelling, I don't know how this is a problem. But like you said, Pierce is working. People are getting behind him. They wanted to see him in the match. Why? I honest to God don't get how this is so hard.
What I was going to say is there's too much.
Kills me.
There's too much good stuff out there for relatively cheap to bother with it for me because, like, you know, you can subscribe to New Japan World, you know, DDT Universe is out there, even Impact for like the $8 is worth the time.
Get TNT Drama Online, and then you can watch AEW stuff.
Yeah, because even like the ridiculous stuff, because it just happened, like the Karate Man versus Ethan Page thing, like that was stupid, but at least they went so whole hog with it that it was entertaining.
Yeah.
And they
steered into it.
Well, they embrace like how stupid things are. I mean, that was hilarious though. I don't know if you watch like the GIFs of it.
I saw some of them. To drag us back over to Joe and Necro real quick, with the way the crowd was reacting, I looked at it like, oh, why are these? You know, I was like, why are these people so happy for all of this horrible? And I'm like, oh, it's Philly. Never mind.
Well, I was gonna say I liked that the crowd was not like a completely modern crowd, so you weren't getting. It was so. I don't want to. I just cannot tell you how refreshing it was to not have the "This is awesome" chant like 2 seconds into the match. Like I was like, and
fight forever.
You know,
like, oh my God.
You know what needs to make a comeback because it was a much better chant where they were like "fuck 'em up, Joe, fuck 'em up." Like that was such a better.
Or Sandman.
Yeah, like that is such a better chant. But like it was so refreshing that they were not doing like the shit you hear at every show. Like it was so nice. Yeah.
Well, and it was a very like honest, raw reaction, and so they're reacting in a way of what they're actually feeling, and not being like, we're at a show, we're supposed to do these. Like the only time that I've heard "this is awesome" like so early in a match and not been mad about it was that Shield Wyatt family match where they were. Like they milked the face-off portion before they actually even touched, and the build-up had been so hot. Like, and on that one I was okay because it like they were just building tension, and it was like the compression happening. But then it's just like these two guys are circling around each other, and they stop, and it's like if you want to be a great heel now, you get out there, and people start going fight forever. You roll out of the ring, you go grab the microphone and says, you don't tell me what to do, I'm leaving, and you try to walk out, and they're going to hate your guts. Easy enough. No one's ever done it that I know of.
So, my overall thoughts on this is, I'm a little like Matt. This is not my scene with like super bloody. I wouldn't call this deathmatch. I don't like the head stuff. I'm still gonna say this is probably an iconic match of its era. And if you're wanting to digest like all of the key moments of this decade, that this match would be required viewing, just because it is like important. I do think despite my discomfort with it, that I would still call it a good match for the most part. Not a great match, but I'd call it a good match, and I'd say like it is important.
It's the story is great because you have Joe as just this recognized ass kicker who comes in, and the story is that Necro just keeps getting up. And so even in this solid, convincing loss, because he loses by knockout, he still pulls himself, like he's still trying to pull himself up, but he can't get to his feet. Like, yeah, if you didn't know Necro Butcher before, now you get it. This is the dude who, you could hit him with a truck and he's going to kick out at 2. He might not be able to win, but the amount you're going to have to put into him, it's going to take all day. Cool. This is important for an establishing an important character in this era of wrestling. And no, I don't like this much blood. The head drops and the hits and the stuff just make me shudder because of the thoughts of what all goes into. But it is, I'll agree, it's important. Good, that's not really what I'm going for, but it has an important place. I'm trying to agree with you and being too wordy about it.
I would agree with you. It's not necessarily my cup of tea. The point I was trying to make earlier is that I would have probably really been into this match when I was younger, like when it came out at the time.
When we didn't know CTE was a thing.
Yeah, but now as I've gotten older and we know a little more, it just really, really kind of makes me cringe. Like this, and I would say that this is like an important match for both of them, because I agree with you, Shad. Like it makes Necro, it got both guys over, in that Joe looked like an absolute monster killer, and Necro just looked like a dude who, like, you could literally throw everything at him and he would still get up. So it really did, even though he lost, it got him over as like a kind of a tough guy, unstoppable force type of way. So that really did help his like mystique. But it is like for those who do watch it, I would almost give like an advisory warning. It is a brutal match to watch. There's a lot of blood. It looks, again, to me, it was almost like a worked shoot where it's violent. It's very, very violent, and it looks very real. So it's a good match, but it's tough. It was tough to watch for me. I was like, oh,